Every football generation believes it has witnessed the greatest player who ever lived. Today, that belief almost always begins with two names: Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo. For nearly 2 decades, they shattered records that once seemed untouchable. They collected Ballon d'Or until the trophy itself became part of their rivalry. They turned every goal into another argument. Every assist became another comparison. Every season demanded another verdict. Fans filled stadiums wearing different colors but asking the same question: who is the greatest footballer of all time? The internet made the debate louder than ever before. Television carried it across every continent. Social media transformed every statistic into fresh ammunition. Entire careers became courtroom evidence in a never-ending trial. Goals were counted, trophies were weighed, records were dissected. Every number appeared to bring football closer to an answer, yet the answer never arrived, because the question itself is much older than either man. Long before Messi dribbled through defenders in Barcelona, long before Ronaldo exploded down the wing in Manchester, millions of supporters were already arguing over another name, then another again. Each generation believed it had already seen football's ultimate player. Each generation defended its hero with the same certainty heard today. The faces changed. The arguments never did. Because the GOAT debate did not begin with Messi. It did not begin with Ronaldo. In truth, it may have begun before the modern game even knew how to measure greatness. To understand today's debate, we must return to a football world where greatness had no statistics to hide behind, and no acronym called GOAT. There was a time when football traveled more slowly than the stories told about it. Supporters rarely watched matches beyond their own cities. Newspapers carried results days after the final whistle. Radio transformed distant victories into living imagination. The greatest players were often described long before they were ever seen. A dazzling dribble became a headline. A spectacular goal became a legend. With every retelling, the stories grew larger. Football built its earliest heroes through memory as much as reality. Nobody spoke about a GOAT. The expression did not yet belong to football. Instead, people asked a simpler question: have you ever seen anyone better? The answer depended almost entirely on where you lived. An English supporter praised one icon. An Italian newspaper celebrated another. South America raised heroes the rest of the world barely witnessed. Europe answered with champions of its own. Without global television, greatness lived inside national borders. Then football slowly became a global language. Club tours crossed oceans. International tournaments reached new audiences. Film reels carried unforgettable moments from one continent to another. For the first time, different football cultures began comparing their heroes. The debate that dominates today's internet was quietly taking shape decades earlier. It simply spoke with different voices. And before one Brazilian teenager stunned the world, another extraordinary figure had already rewritten what greatness looked like. His name was Alfredo Di Stefano, and he changed football before most of the world learned to watch it. Alfredo Di Stefano rarely waited for the ball. He chased the game wherever it demanded him. One moment he was stealing possession near his own penalty area. The next moment he was leading the attack at the opposite end. He played like an entire team trapped inside one player. When he arrived at Real Madrid in 1953, the club was respected. Within a few years, it became the standard every European giant would chase. Real Madrid won the first 5 European Cups in succession. Di Stefano stood at the heart of every triumph. He scored. He created. He defended. He controlled the rhythm of matches from almost every position on the pitch. Long before the phrase, "complete footballer" became fashionable, Di Stefano had already defined it. Opponents struggled to describe what they had witnessed. Managers struggled even harder to stop it. Many who watched him believed football had reached its highest possible level. To them, the debate already had an answer. But history has a habit of interrupting certainty. Only a few years later, a 17-year-old boy arrived at the World Cup carrying almost no international reputation. He left, carrying the expectations of an entire sport. His name was Pelé, and the meaning of greatness was about to become global. When Pelé stepped onto the pitch at the 1958 World Cup, he was only 17 years old. Most of the world had never heard his name. By the end of the tournament, almost nobody would forget it. He played with the fearlessness of youth and the composure of a veteran. Defenders chased shadows that seemed to wear a yellow shirt. The ball obeyed him as though it already knew where history was heading. Brazil lifted its first World Cup. Pelé became its brightest symbol. 4 years later, injuries denied him the chance to dominate another tournament. 8 years after that, he returned with a team remembered as one of football's greatest masterpieces. The 1970 World Cup was broadcast in color to millions of homes around the globe. For the first time, greatness could be witnessed together instead of imagined separately. Children from different continents copied the same celebrations. Commentators searched for new words because the old ones no longer seemed large enough. 3 World Cup titles gave Pelé an argument that nobody else possessed. Victory became the first universal language of greatness. If football had a king, many believed they had already found him. Yet even as Pelé's legend expanded, another question quietly refused to disappear. Was winning the highest measure of greatness? Or was there something even larger than trophies? Could one player change not only the results, but the game itself? That question would soon arrive from the Netherlands, carried by a footballer who believed ideas could defeat medals. Johan Cruyff never looked like the strongest player on the field. He rarely needed to. His greatest weapon was seeing tomorrow's football before everyone else saw today. He drifted across the pitch without respecting traditional positions. Teammates exchanged places as naturally as passing the ball. Opponents chased movement they struggled to understand. The system became the star. Cruyff became its conductor. Under the philosophy later known as total football, every player could attack. Every player could defend. Every player could become someone else for a moment. Football stopped looking like fixed positions. It started looking like organized freedom. Cruyff won 3 consecutive European Cups with Ajax. He collected Ballon d'Or. He inspired an entire generation of coaches. Yet one prize always escaped him: the World Cup. The Netherlands reached the 1974 final. They captivated the world before lifting a single trophy. West Germany lifted the cup. Cruyff lifted something less visible. He changed how football imagined itself. Managers studied his ideas long after his retirement. Players raised under his philosophy reshaped clubs across Europe. Barcelona eventually built an identity that still carries his fingerprints. Suddenly, another definition of greatness emerged. Perhaps the greatest player was not the one who won the most. Perhaps it was the one who permanently changed football. And if that were true, the GOAT debate had become far more complicated. Then football met a genius who seemed to ignore every definition that came before him. Diego Maradona played as though every match carried the weight of an entire nation. The ball rarely left his left foot. Neither did the hopes of millions. He was shorter than many defenders who surrounded him. He often appeared impossible to stop. At the 1986 World Cup, he delivered one of football's most extraordinary performances. He scored a goal remembered for its controversy. Minutes later, he scored another remembered for its beauty. One match contained 2 completely different versions of the same man. Imperfection and brilliance stood side by side. Argentina lifted the World Cup. Maradona became something larger than a champion. He became a symbol. In Naples, murals covered walls. Churches displayed his image beside candles. Supporters spoke his name with the devotion usually reserved for saints. His career was filled with breathtaking triumphs. It was also scarred by addiction, controversy, and painful decline. Those contradictions never erased his legend. For many people, they made it feel even more human. Pelé represented perfection. Cruyff represented revolution. Maradona represented belief. He convinced ordinary supporters that one extraordinary player could carry impossible dreams. Statistics struggled to explain that feeling. Trophies could not fully measure it. How do you compare influence with inspiration? How do you compare flawless consistency with unforgettable moments? The search for football's greatest player no longer had one path. It now had several. And before the world ever argued about Messi or Ronaldo, a growing list of legends had already made one thing unmistakably clear. The greatest footballer depended on what greatness meant to you. By the late 20th century, football's greatest player conversation had become crowded. Franz Beckenbauer lifted his head and controlled matches like a chess master in boots. He turned the sweeper into a position of authority and elegance. George Best danced through defenders with the swagger of a rock star. Crowds arrived expecting entertainment before the match even began. Eusebio struck the ball with a force that terrified goalkeepers across Europe. Portugal discovered a hero who could change a game with a single shot. Each legend carried a different argument: leadership, creativity, charisma, power, longevity, influence. Football was no longer searching for one type of greatness. It was discovering many. Then the 1990s introduced a player who seemed built for the future. Ronaldo Nazario accelerated past defenders as though the laws of physics had briefly relaxed. He combined the power of a striker with the dribbling of a winger. Coaches searched for comparisons and found very few. Many believed they were watching football's next undisputed king. Injuries interrupted that destiny, yet his peak remained so extraordinary that decades later, players still speak about it with awe. Soon, another artist arrived. Zinedine Zidane moved through midfield with a calm that made elite football look strangely quiet. He scored in World Cup finals. He dominated the biggest stages. He turned pressure into theater. By the early 2000s, the debate had become impossible to simplify. Too many legends had already left fingerprints on the game. Then two teenagers arrived who would inherit every argument that came before them. Lionel Messi arrived in Barcelona with a slight frame and an unusual left foot. Cristiano Ronaldo arrived in Manchester with step-overs, speed, and relentless ambition. At first, they looked like different stories. One glided through spaces that barely existed. The other attacked them with explosive force. One seemed born with the ball. The other seemed determined to conquer it through work. Then the records started falling. 40 goals became ordinary. 50 goals became possible. Seasons that once looked historic began repeating themselves. They pushed each other higher, year after year. Ballon d'Or ceremonies turned into annual episodes of the same rivalry. Champions League nights became global events. Entire generations grew up believing football had never seen anything comparable. In one sense, they were right. Never before had two all-time greats competed simultaneously for so long. Never before had every touch been recorded, replayed, and debated by billions. Yet Messi and Ronaldo did not create the GOAT debate. They inherited it. Behind every modern comparison stood the shadows of Pelé, Di Stefano, Cruyff, Maradona, Beckenbauer, and countless others. The stage was bigger, the audience was global, the argument was old. And that is where the real problem begins. How do you compare a player from 1960 with a player from 2020? The game itself changed too many times. Pelé played on pitches that often looked more like uneven fields than modern carpets. Defenders could tackle with a brutality that would bring instant cards today. Cruyff competed in an era before sophisticated sports science transformed preparation. Maradona carried a workload that modern clubs would carefully manage. Messi and Ronaldo benefited from advanced nutrition, recovery, analytics, and global scouting networks. They also faced tactical systems far more organized than many earlier generations encountered. The calendar expanded, the number of matches increased, the number of cameras multiplied. Every mistake became permanent. Every masterpiece became instantly shareable. Statistics grew richer and more precise. Yet statistics also became more seductive. A modern fan can compare goals, assists, expected goals, progressive carries, and dozens of other metrics. A supporter from the 1960s often compared memories, newspaper reports, and the testimony of people who were there. One era measures almost everything. Another era preserved only fragments. The further back we travel, the harder certainty becomes. Which means the GOAT debate may not be a mathematical problem at all. It may be a question about what each generation chooses to value. Transition. And once that question is asked, football's greatest mystery starts to look very different. Perhaps football has been asking the wrong question all along. Not, who is the greatest, but, greatest by whose standards? To a child growing up in Brazil during the 1960s, greatness wore the number 10 and lifted the World Cup. To supporters who watched Real Madrid conquer Europe, greatness controlled every blade of grass through Alfredo Di Stefano. To those inspired by ideas, greatness looked like Johan Cruyff redrawing football's blueprint. To millions in Argentina and Naples, greatness sounded like Diego Maradona carrying impossible hopes on his left foot. For a new generation, greatness became measurable every weekend through Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Each era asked a different question. Each era received a different answer. Winning mattered. Changing the game mattered. Inspiring a nation mattered. Longevity mattered. Consistency mattered. Beauty mattered. None of those ideas replaced the others. They simply accumulated. The definition of greatness kept growing larger than any single player, which means every generation inherits a debate that is already unfinished. And perhaps that is exactly why football has never agreed on one final name. Pelé proved that greatness could conquer the world. Di Stefano proved that greatness could control every phase of a match. Cruyff proved that greatness could survive inside ideas. Maradona proved that greatness could live inside emotion. Beckenbauer proved that greatness could lead from the back. Ronaldo Nazario proved that greatness could exist even in a career interrupted by injury. Zidane proved that greatness could shine brightest under the heaviest pressure. Messi proved that genius could remain consistent for nearly 2 decades. Ronaldo proved that relentless ambition could keep rewriting the limits of human performance. None of them erased the player who came before. Each one expanded the meaning of the word great. That is why every generation believes its hero is the greatest. Not because earlier legends have been forgotten, but because greatness itself keeps evolving. Football never stands still. Neither does its definition of immortality. So perhaps the search for one perfect answer was never the point. The GOAT debate survives because football refuses to remain the same game. Rules evolve. Tactics evolve. Training evolves. Technology evolves. Players evolve. Every new generation arrives believing it can finally settle the argument. Every generation leaves the conversation a little more complicated than it found it. That is not a weakness. It is part of football's magic. If everyone agreed on one answer, the debate would end. And with it, countless conversations between parents and children, friends in cafes, supporters in stadiums, and strangers connected only by their love of the game. Football's greatest player may never be chosen unanimously. But football's greatest stories continue to create new candidates. And that may be the most enduring legacy of all. One day, another extraordinary footballer will emerge. Records that seem impossible today may eventually fall. A new generation will watch in disbelief. Another debate will begin. Some will compare that player to Messi. Others will compare them to Ronaldo. A few will still insist that Pelé remains unmatched. Others will never move beyond Maradona. And somewhere, another child will ask the same timeless question. Who is the greatest footballer of all time? There may never be a universal answer, because every legend changed football in a different way. And perhaps that was always the true legacy of the GOAT debate. It was never about proving one immortal was greater than another. It was about remembering why each of them became immortal in the first place. The names will continue to change. The debate never will.